Welcome to Beating Cancer Daily. Beating stage 4 cancer for 30 years still takes my breath away every time I say it. I'm Saranne, founder of the Comedy Cures Foundation, and I hope you'll join me for just a few minutes daily for the next 365 days so we may laugh, learn, maybe cry a little as we live our best days beating cancer daily together. Have you ever pissed off your bladder? I always see if I could get a laugh out of Jacqui. She's laughing in the background. I have done that since I was 4 years old. Yep. And I never want anyone to be in a fight with their bladder because it doesn't feel good. The bladder wins. I just want to let you know. Bladder always wins. So we thought it would be a really good idea to do an episode where we show our bladder some love. And it's really important for many reasons. But one is because when you anger that bladder, it feels awful and it talks to you the whole day and night. And so I want to keep us on really good terms with our bladder. So let me welcome our functional medicine expert, whole health educator, certified health coach, certified nutrition specialist, and RN, Jacqui Bryan.
Hi, Saranne. Thanks for having me today for this fun topic on bladder health. It reminded me, I called my mom this morning because I said, Mom, do you remember when we were stuck in traffic? We were leaving New Jersey. We were going over the George Washington Bridge, and my sister and I had to pee so badly. Like we couldn't hold it anymore. And so my mom was driving, and it was just the two of us in the car. And my mom reached back and handed us 2 cups. We were sitting in traffic. So we had to pee in the cup. Now, I very proudly will admit that I am an excellent shot, right? Like I was able to pee in that cup in a beautiful way and did not squirt all over the place.
Jacqui is an overachiever. I just want to let everybody know. We would have beat all over the back seat, but
My
Jacqui is an
sister,
overachiever.
she was not a great shot. I mean, it was everywhere, and I felt so bad for her. But we were like 5 and 7, but, when you and I were chatting about topics for this week and we decided we were gonna do bladder health, I was thinking, "What bladder stories do I have?" And that was one of the most memorable in terms of just being a kid and not being able to hold it anymore, being stuck in traffic, and everyone's beeping their horns, and we're country people. We're in the city. So I thought it was kind of a fun little story to share.
I am just impressed that your mom had 2 cups in the car and you didn't have to share a cup because I don't have cups in my car. And the other thing is, I got a speeding ticket once because my daughter was doing community service. And so we were actually going to a medium security prison to do a program because I run the Comedy Cures Foundation and she had elected this as her project in high school, and I was speeding because my daughter was crying that she had to pee, and I know what that's like to anger your bladder. So we went rushing down this highway, and do you know a
Oh, no.
cop pulls us over, and I'm like, "Sir, she has to go to the bathroom. Please don't give us a ticket, or let me just get her to the bathroom, and I'll take the ticket after I get her to the bathroom." And this mean male cop would not let us get that child to the bathroom first and gave me that ticket. And I actually went to court and I appealed that ticket as somebody that has lifelong kidney issues. And I got off for the ticket. They just made me pay like a minor fine, but it was so mean.
No, that's terrible. I woulda had her go sit in his car. Let her Okay, if you're not gonna let her pee, then she's gonna hang out in your car for a while to see if she
That would have gotten us arrested. And he didn't even have, like, compassion that we were going to do community service at the prison. He just didn't care about any of our story. I think he thought I was making the whole thing up or maybe someone I knew was incarcerated, but we were literally just going to do some community service programming. But anyway, it is just not fun. As I said, you've heard it many times. At 9, I developed kidney stones. And one of the big things they tell you is do not hold your urine for hours. It's not good for you. So, Jacqui's going to give us so many tips, and I'm really interested in this episode. Jacqui, thank you so much for joining us.
I think we all have our bladder stories. We all have stories that we can tell about that extreme urgency to go and we couldn't hold it. Today, we're going to talk about what the bladder is, what it does, what makes it grumpy or pisses it off, as you said, and what are some of the common bladder issues that we experience. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is always your favorite, which is going through the nutrition and lifestyle strategies for bladder health. But what is the bladder, right? I mean, the bladder is actually a part of your urinary system that's paired up with your kidneys, your ureters, and your urethra, and they work together to filter your blood, produce and transport and store urine. I think we kind of figured that out. But how often do you really think about this vital system that removes wastes and toxins and excess fluids, and it helps maintain your body's balance? I mean, it's a priority. I think it's underappreciated.
Jackie, nobody ever associates kidney and blood. Urine, yes, but blood, no, unless that's a sign that something's going wrong. But I just don't associate it with blood, just urine.
It's filtering the blood and taking the byproduct out of the blood, and then it makes it in the form of urine where it gets dipped down into the bladder. I mean, if you think of the bladder as your body's ultimate sort of flexible holding tank, it's this kind of muscular balloon like organ that's located in your pelvis, and its only job, really, its only job is to store urine until you're ready to find the bathroom.
It's so cool. I actually have learned a little bit about it because I know that they can make a bladder if you have to have your bladder removed. And I just think that's so cool, like that they can go in and make a substitute bladder. But I know we're probably not getting into that. But I am a little bit hooked on the bladder right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we need to think about. It's a master stretcher, right? So when I say it's like a balloon, it's seriously like a balloon. It's when it's small, it's deflated, it's kind of tucked behind your pubic bone. And as your kidneys kind of drip feed the urine into it, right? Because it drips and feeds it over time, it starts to expand like a balloon would expand. And a healthy bladder can comfortably hold about 1.5 to 2 cups, which is like 400 to 600 milliliters of liquid. And if you've ever felt like you're floating, like you really gotta pee, it's because that balloon has stretched sort of up into your abdominal area and you really gotta go.
I've shared before that I thought it was a fun trick to hold my urine as much as I could as a little kid until it caused an issue with unstretching and stretching. And then I was told, hey, you're not going to win a prize for being the biggest urine holder. Do not do that. But I'm sure there's a Guinness Book of World Records for that.
Yeah, I mean, I was always told never travel in a car with a full bladder because if you've ever had an accident, that could cause damage, internal damage. I think it's really interesting how our body functions. We call it sort of the physiological ways that our body performs its everyday tasks. And what's neat about the bladder is it actually has stretch receptors in it. And so when it's half full, it sends you a bit of a polite message to your brain and it says, "Hey, I'm thinking that we might need to pee soon." And then when it gets to capacity, it gets that fullness, that sense that we were just talking about. That's the mayday, right? That's the my mom handing me the cup to the back seat saying, "You're gonna have to pee in the cup if you can't hold it anymore." I mean, I think it's pretty interesting to think about how intricate this system is and how little we think about it.
There's this funny meme circulating online where all these different alarm clocks are hanging out, and then there's a bladder, and the bladder's like the king, and it basically says, "Hey, I decide when we wake up, not you, to these lowly alarm clocks, and it is true.
It is. It is so true. I think what's interesting is some of this is within our control and some of it is not. I mean, there's really kind of this two-gate system that actually falls into place when it comes to the bladder. If you think of it like two faucets or two sphincters, there's this automatic one that stays shut without you thinking about it. You don't have to put any energy into it. But then there's a manual one, and this is the one that we can control. And this is the one that we can even talk a little bit more about today when we talk about Kegel exercises and even nutrition. But the one that you can control is a part of your pelvic floor muscles. And this is really the one that when you decide to go, your brain tells that muscle to relax when the bladder muscle needs to, and it squeezes out or pushes out the urine, right? So there is some control over that. Now, my son was 9 pounds, 3 ounces. He was a big, I mean, I have three kids, but he was a big fat baby. And man, he put a lot of pressure down there. And I will tell you that that required a little bit of extra Kegel exercises to get everything back into shape down there because it was pretty challenging for a while.
Those are the most misunderstood exercises. I think really women are so confused on how to do those properly. I think pelvic floor is a whole topic that we should really do because there's so many reasons why, as women, we need to keep that healthy. Do men need to do it too, Jack, to keep their bladder healthy?
I think of any muscle in your body, you should be working it if you can. And so Kegel exercises are good for both men and for women. Particularly women, we hear more about it because Kegels are things that we think about after we have a child. I know that after, as we age, our structurally things change in our body down yonder. And so we need to pay a little bit more attention to that as well. And so we could definitely devote an episode to Kegels. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a pelvic floor specialist. So I think that's important to note. But I know that many of us have had some experience with Kegel exercises and they can be helpful.
I actually know a pelvic floor expert, so maybe we'll just have her on together.
Oh, that would be
And
fun. Yeah. So, what are some foods and drinks or things that can really irritate your bladder? I mean, we talked about what the bladder is, what it does, but what are the things that make it grumpy? And part of the reason I care about this is if you've got a grumpy bladder, it's potential that you could be having some inflammation there. And that inflammation can lead to other health conditions, right? So, conditions that we get concerned about are things like cystitis. That's when you get inflammation of the bladder. It's usually caused by urinary tract infections, right? So that's one concern. Another is an overactive bladder. That's where people have frequent sudden urges to urinate. It's caused by involuntary contractions of the detrusor muscles, which again, that would be something the pelvic floor specialist would work with you on. Bladder stones. Now, Saran, you've been very open about your quarry in your kidneys. Bladder stones are similar in the sense that they're hard masses of minerals that form when the urine becomes concentrated in the bladder and it crystallizes. And this can happen when you're not completely emptying your bladder. And so, what's interesting is I was reading about a couple of things that can cause incomplete emptying. And one of them is when we use a public restroom we tend to not sit down. Now, this is tough for me because I'm totally not, I'm more of a squatter than a sitter when I go to a public restroom. But sitting down actually fully relaxes those pelvic muscles so the bladder can empty completely. Whereas if you're squatting, it is making it difficult for you to release all of the urine, which can cause some of that pooling. So the suggestion was made that you clean and sanitize, you bring your own little toilet cleansing for those public restrooms. I'm still not sure how to
I'm
go
so
about it.
grossed out right now, Jackie.
I mean, I
No.
take pride in those quad muscles of mine that allows me to squat for quite a period of time, but it is important for you to relax while you're peeing, and especially for those bladder stones. Incontinence is one that is a concern for many people, especially after delivering big babies, but that's really where we have a loss of bladder control. It can be stress related, which I think is interesting from coughing and sneezing. My family got a this is probably sharing way too much information.
You are sharing a lot on this episode. Usually, I'm the confessional. I'm really impressed.
I know, but we have a trampoline at our house. We love bouncing on trampolines, and so I found that and we've had trampoline for many years. It's one of those encased ones. It's a good workout. But when I first started bouncing on the trampoline, that's when I realized I'm like, "Ooh, I don't have the same control that I thought." But I have to tell you that over time, the more I bounced, the more control I got. So it was a bouncing form of Kegels, I think, that I was doing.
That's a really good idea because we used to have one and we don't have one now, and I'm wondering if that could be contributing to me having to go more frequently. I just I had so many bladder infections through my 20s and 30s, I can't even tell you, that I actually found a joke about bladder infections, and I just have to say it because it made me laugh so hard. When you get a bladder infection, you're in trouble. Get it?
I love that. That is so fun.
You're
Oh,
you're
that's
in. It's actually really funny written because 'cause you're in versus urine,
yeah,
but I thought that was great.
that was almost as good as your tea-rific pun that you did for our tea episode.
I wrote that one, this one I did not write, but I am obsessed with it. I'm gonna use it anytime someone's talking to me about a urine infection.
Oh, it's so cute. What one of the last things I just wanted to mention, because I know of several people that have been struggling with bladder cancer. When we think about the conditions with issues with bladder, one of the most concerning is obviously cancer. And what I was surprised to learn from the American Cancer Society was bladder cancer is the 10th most common cancer worldwide for men. And it's more common in men. And one of the things I found interesting is one of the causes can be constant irritation of the bladder, right? So you have this constant irritation, and that irritation leads to inflammation that can cause the changing in the cells that in the bladder, but also smoking, work exposure to chemicals, infections, genetic predisposition, radiation for something else, and then even age, right? So as we age, we're more prone to cancers. But, I think it's really important for us to talk about, especially since it is such a common type of cancer for men.
And I know people who have been diagnosed with bladder cancer, both men and women, and the first sign that I have heard that they realized was they saw a tiny bit of discoloration in their urine, and we've talked about how beets can do that,
Mhm.
sometimes berries can do that, but they saw a change in the color of their urine and went to the doctor right away and actually caught their bladder cancer pretty early on.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we just have to pay attention. Right, and I think that's what's really important is paying attention to what our symptoms are. And so some of the symptoms that someone might experience that could be bladder issues and maybe not serious or could be serious are things like urgency or feeling like you need to go right away, frequent trips to the bathroom, leaking urine, burning or discomfort, waking up in the middle of the night to urinate, and then even more serious, like you were saying, discoloration and blood. All of those are things to pay attention to. But what are some of the foods and drinks that can actually irritate the bladder? I'm actually drinking one right now, right? Green tea or just tea, caffeine in general, coffee, tea, soda, energy drinks can increase urgency and frequency. Now, this is more, I'm not talking like cancer causing, but what are things that can irritate the bladder? So just know that just because you may consume these things, it doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. It just means that these are things that are going to, as you said, piss off the bladder.
I have to guess that any kind of smoking, whether
Yes.
that's grass or nicotine, cloves, any kind of smoking would probably just really make that bladder grumpy.
Yes, that's actually one of the things the American Cancer Society suggested that people quit because of the higher incidence of bladder cancer in addition to lung cancer. But alcohol also increases urine production and it can irritate the bladder. I mean, really, like at my age, I think about all the things I do each day, and I try really hard just not to upset my body, right? Because just the whole aging process alone can be inflammatory, right? So I'm working hard to make sure that I'm consuming foods that are going to love and nourish my body rather than upset it and make it grumpy.
I think about giving the different organs personas, and I think
Mhm.
about the bladder when stuff is coming into it. It's monologue that it's having, about what's going on that you're giving it, and I could just see it be so mad and going on a rant if it's getting things like smoke and alcohol, like, really, like, having a conversation with itself, and I found a joke online that actually was a woman answering a bunch of phones, and above her head, it says "incontinence hotline," and we've all had a moment where our bladder just didn't hold for whatever reason,
Mhm.
it was a
Yeah,
bump
yeah.
in a car ride, or we were just sitting in traffic, or in a deep sleep, and so she's answering the phones, and she says, "Incontinence hotline, please hold." It's like, I could see that conversation with my bladder now that I've seen that visual of just somebody in there on the phone on my bladder just going, "Please hold. Okay, please hold."
Have you ever been in a situation where you were held down by somebody and tickled to the point where you had to be I my husband did that to me once, which is, I mean, terrible, but I was like, You gotta stop. You really have to stop. Like, this needs to stop because I had to go so bad." And I mean, I know we're digressing, but
I hate when people force tickle me, like, I don't know why people think that feels good, because they always do it too hard or, like, in the wrong spot, and if you gotta go and they do that and you pee on them, they deserve that.
I know, but I've just never heard of anybody say force tickle. Just it just doesn't go together. But anyways, my husband's a big guy, like, he's not heavy, he's just tall, and I'm kinda helpless when he gets in that tickling mood. But that's another podcast, so let's move. Carbonated drinks, that bubbliness in those drinks can increase discomfort, and even some of our healthy acidic foods, if you're prone to an irritated bladder, things like oranges, grapefruits, tomatoes, tomato products, these can worsen symptoms in some people, as can spicy foods. And I'm wondering if I'm one of those people because you might feel a little bit different when you're urinating after having a really spicy meal, especially if you didn't hydrate properly. And there are some people also with artificial sweeteners that can worsen urgency and leaking as well.
That's so interesting. I don't like spicy foods, so I've never had that happen because I just don't eat them, but how interesting. Now I have to go out with friends who love spicy stuff and just ask them if they notice that, because that's really fascinating, Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all experience different symptoms based on our own unique makeup. And some people are pretty sensitive to spicy stuff, as am I. And if it's not issues with your bladder, it could be reflux, it could be another type of symptom. But we did just touch upon hydration and why it matters. And this is really where I want to get into some of the nutrition for bladder health. Water is really your best choice for bladder health. It's a steady intake throughout the day. You don't need to chug a lot. You don't need to drink a ton of water all at one time. Most adults need about 6 to 8 cups of fluid a day, but your needs will vary if you live at altitude, if you're more active, or if it's really hot weather. All of those will play a role in how much you actually need. It might be a good idea to limit fluids in the evening so you're not up in the middle of the night with frequent urination. But just keep in mind that if you drink too little, it can make your urine concentrated, which can irritate the bladder. If you drink too much at one time, it can increase your urgency, right? So there's really finding this key balance. And one of the parts of finding a key balance is bringing in those important nutrients that are bladder friendly. And these are the ones that are going to keep the urine less irritating. It's going to support the healthy muscle function that we were talking about. It will reduce the pressure. So if you've got constipation, chronic constipation, we know that incorporating more dietary fiber into your routine is super important because constipation actually presses against the bladder and it can worsen the leakage or urgency for having to go to the bathroom. So those food sources that are really good for fiber are the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and beans. Those are a really good resource.
Is asparagus good? I mean, I know that it makes your pee smell, but does that mean you should be eating asparagus or you shouldn't be eating asparagus?
Some people get the smelly pea from asparagus and some people don't. Asparagus is a wonderful food for many reasons, for fiber, for nutrition. So I don't think there's any problem with consuming it unless you actually have an allergy to asparagus. But I know that some people are pretty sensitive to that smell, right? I know that when I eat asparagus, again, with all this disclosure I'm doing today, I am one of the smelly pea people after having asparagus.
Me too, Jack. This is why we love each other. And cranberry juice, like everybody says, have cranberry juice if you want to keep your bladder healthy. But then there's sugar in the cranberry juice a lot of times. So, what's your feeling about cranberry juice?
Well, I would do cranberries that don't have sugar in them, right? Sugar is not going to serve your body well in any way, but that can be a part of a healthy routine. Potassium rich foods are really helpful for fluid balance. It can support normal muscle function, and those are found in things like bananas and squash, potatoes, and leafy greens. Magnesium rich foods. We've talked about getting magnesium in pumpkin seeds. There it is. I threw it in today. But magnesium actually supports muscle relaxation of all the muscles in your body, including the bladder and the muscles that support that pelvic floor that we were talking about as well.
I think that's really helpful to think about when you're going to consume your last liquids because I think that is one of the quickest ways to stop waking up in the middle of the night is if you're not chugging big water right before you go to bed.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the timing of it is really important, and I think everybody's different, so I think it's really important to find what works for you. I drink a lot of water throughout the day, and I'm probably up at least once a night to go to the bathroom, but I do sleep really well, but I think it's sometimes if I do too much, I'll be up 2 and 3 times a night, which will really disrupt our sleep cycle, and that gets into our whole the importance of circadian rhythm and having a good night's rest. I do think that if we're eating the right types of foods at night, maybe not quite as high in carbohydrates like bready and cookie type stuff, but fruits and vegetables and lean proteins at our last meal, not eating too close to bed can be helpful. But lean proteins, a lot of the proteins in things like turkey and chicken have tryptophan, which can actually have a benefit for sleep. But lean proteins are also important for supporting the muscle strength and tissue repair for all of our body, including our bladder and our urinary systems. I think that's one thing that we don't always think about is that we are made up of protein and getting in the good sources of protein, plant and animal, if you do animal sources, can be really beneficial.
And I'm thinking about sodium because I have to restrict salt. And I would assume that if you are mindful about how much sodium you're taking later in the day, you might have less thirst
Mhm.
cravings. But also, what about working out? Because if you're doing late night workouts, then you're going to be thirsty and you're going to want to drink a lot. So, is there any advice on when you would work out so that you aren't hydrating so late at night?
Yeah, I don't wanna tell people they shouldn't be working out, but I also would like them to align it with making sure that they get at least a few hours before bedtime without having the your whole energy and everything increases when you work out, which can make sleep a little more challenging. So just like limiting the hydration before bed if you need to. Now, here's the thing. If your body really needs the liquids, you don't want to not give it what it needs, right? Because you don't want to be dehydrated because again, that will concentrate the urine. It'll make it more irritating to the bladder, right? So we really want to make sure we're drinking water in a way that is giving our body what it needs, but not so close to bedtime so that it disrupts our sleep. The one area that we don't think a lot about when it comes to bladder health or overall body health is healthy fats. And healthy fats we've talked about in other episodes as being a critical component to our cell health and reducing inflammation. So people that are concerned about inflammation in their bladder should be getting in a good amount of healthy fats and things like olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocado, fatty fish. That's going to be very anti-inflammatory for the body. I mean, if we kind of recap, you want to avoid the things that are going to irritate the bladder. You want to pay attention to the symptoms that could potentially be telling us there's a problem. And then we want to flood our body with the nutrition that is going to support that vital urinary system that we're trying to take good care of, as well as the rest of our body. And so we want to support the body with all that, the fiber, the potassium, magnesium, lean proteins, and healthy fats. Those are going to really serve you well.
That's such a great review, Jackie. Do you think that it's really important for us to have a cool, tall glass of water in the morning when we awaken just to get the bladder and everything in it moving?
I drink water first thing in the morning. It's not always cold because sometimes I think that's a little shocking. Sometimes it's room temperature. It's interesting because as the day goes on, I like my beverages cooler, but first thing in the morning, I like to ease into it a little bit, not freezing cold. But everybody has their own routine. Some people really enjoy water with lemon, which can be really good for balancing gut health. And there's so many different things that we can do when it comes to hydration. And I believe we did a hydration episode, didn't we, Saranne? So we can kind of refer people back to that one to really dive into that. But for bladder health, it's just about finding the right balance between hydration, nutrition, and really eliminating those things that are upsetting it.
So, this episode has made me want to be in dialogue a lot more with my bladder. And I asked it while we were sitting here, Bladder, do you have any advice for me? And my bladder said, go with the flow, girl. Just go with the flow.
Oh, it's so cute.
So, what is your bladder telling you? And how are you instructed wherever you are in the 144 plus countries listening to us? What do you eat for bladder health? What are you taught about your bladder? We would love to know because we share this information. So go to comedycures.org and hit the contact menu and write to us, or go to the podcast section and just record a message. Let us know how you are handling your bladder health, and I'll share it with the amazing Jacqui Bryan. If you would like to learn more about Jacqui, go to jacquibryan.com. If you can't find her, then come back to me at Comedy Cures and write a message to me, and I'll send you her signature. Thank you so much, Jacqui. This was great.
Thank you, Saranne. Have a great day.
Have a blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow. If you loved today's episode, then tell the world. Why? Because Beating Cancer Daily is a listener and donor supported experience. So the more people you tell and the more people that join us, the more robust and interesting programs our nonprofit, the Comedy Cures Foundation, can bring to you throughout the year. So if you have some extra change, I'd love you to go to comedycures.org and make a donation today of whatever level is comfortable for you. And it will be tax deductible to the extent allowed by law, because Comedy Cures is a nonprofit 501c3 organization founded from my chemo chair, April 1999, and we've been going strong ever since. So please consider making a donation today and help our community and this podcast thrive. Guess what time it is? It's time for me to read the disclaimer. Beating Cancer Daily and the Membership Circle are not in lieu of medical advice or treatment. They are for entertainment purposes only. Please consult your healthcare team to review your best strategy. Thanks for listening. See you guys tomorrow.